Okay, we've covered an awful lot of ground in this little blues course. It's really important that you practice the right things to make the most of your practice time and to make sure that you really digest this information. So, what should you be doing? Well, the first thing that needs to go onto your practice schedule is to learn the licks. Of course, you need to learn the scale positions as well, that go around the licks, but definitely knowing the licks for each position is really important. So it's worth practicing each one up, really working on trying to make it sound good, not just getting the notes right, but thinking about how loud and soft you pick the notes, you know, the whole kind of the dynamic feel of it, whether you really give it some aggression or whether it's soft and delicate, that kind of thing. That makes a huge difference to the way people can kind of project through their playing. So learning your licks, getting your licks down right is the first thing that you should be worried about. The next thing is making sure that you use them. Now, what I recommend for all my students is that you use a backing track. Now, if you're lucky enough to be in a band and you can practice using the licks with a band, then that's the best thing ever, but not everyone has that luxury, so a backing track is a pretty close second. Now, there's backing tracks available from my site, including a couple of free ones, so use those. There's plenty around on the internet, so just look about and find yourself some backing tracks to jam to. It's really important. The ones that you'll buy from my site, or get from my site, are 5 minutes long, which is a good amount of time to practice one lick. Now, I did talk about this in an earlier lesson in Blues League Guitar Volume 1, but just to reiterate it here, take one lick that I've given you and use it as many different times, as many different ways as you can for a whole 5 minutes. What you'll find is that after the first minute, you've used every way that you can possibly think of to play the lick, and that way you'll start really pushing your boundaries of the way that you can use that lick. It's also worth, within that 5 minutes, maybe toward the last part of it, the last minute or so, linking up with some other licks that you already know from that position, so you can, you know, sit there and go from one lick and then smoothly into another lick and then back to the first lick or whatever, you know, that kind of letting them blend. Because what you don't want is to have, oh, here's the licks that you've learned on this DVD or from wherever else, and when you play, it's got nothing to do with that collection of licks. You have to try and blend them into your playing so that they naturally just come out whenever you play your pentatonic. That's kind of the point. As well as doing that, you might want to add to your practice schedule, after you've done all of these individual licks in individual positions, would be linking positions and practicing moving from one place to another place and using those slides to join them together, or shifts, or using the same note. A good idea is just to pick one specific thing and practice that. So either practice moving from one position to another position that's right next door, or practice jumping from one end of the neck to the other end of the neck and back to the middle somewhere, really jumping around a lot. But really try and define the thing it is that you're going to practice and then work on that one thing over and over. Okay, now the other really, really big question that people have is, okay, you've taught me loads of stuff about playing in the key of A, but I want to play in other keys too. Actually, you have to play in other keys, and it's really, really important. But the reason that I taught you everything in the key of A is so that you really start to understand each position. Now, once you can play, let's, for example, position 1. You've learned your licks in position 1 in the key of A, and you've done your homework and you've really got it sounding good. Now, if you want to move that to the key of C, all you need to do is move the root note. And this is why I keep going on all the time through all my lessons about the importance of knowing which note is the root note. Because all you have to do is to move that root note to the key of your new key, to the note of your new key, and you've got your new scale. For example, position 1 in A was around the 5th fret. If you wanted to play in C, you simply move that whole bunch of stuff up to the 8th fret, because the root note for the key of C is the note C, 8th fret, 6th string, and then you can play all your position 1 licks. Now, you'll find that a little bit weird at first because you've been playing so much in the key of A. So what you want to start again with is just playing position 1. Get used to playing position 1 in your new key. When you feel confident that, maybe try and go from position 1 up into position 2, back to position 1, up to position 2, back to position 1, and start to see that they kind of link together. And because you've already done it in the key of A, you will find it quite easy, I'm sure, to link through all your different positions if you've done your homework in the key of A well enough, which I'm hoping you will have done. Other things we need to talk about quickly, new licks. So I've given you a bunch of licks, but Eric Clapton certainly didn't learn licks from a DVD by some weird Tasmanian guy who teaches via the internet. You learn licks from records. The sooner you get transcribing and listening to your favourite B.B. King or Eric Clapton or whoever you like's album and trying to work out their licks, that's what you should be doing. That is the real way to learn to play blues guitar, and there's no substitute for it. I've given you a really good course that I think will help you on your way, but you need to transcribe things. There's no question, you must do that if you want to end up being even a competent guitar player. Has to be transcribing stuff. Now, to help you with that, I have a product which I'm not saying you have to buy. You can be using your own CDs, like Clapton CDs or whatever if you like, but I've got this really useful blues solos pack where I recorded 5 different solos in the style of 5 different guitar players, and they progressively get harder, and they use a mixture of the different pentatonic scales, and they're full of licks. I picked each guitar player's 20 whatever favourite licks and then squashed them all into a new solo, made a backing track and recorded it. So I've made sure they're fairly straightforward to transcribe, and you get the tabs as well. So after you've transcribed it, like worked it out by ear yourself, you can then check it against my transcription and make sure that everything's okay. So that's a really important thing that you do next, is work on your own licks. Mega important. One last thing, there is another note that you will find crops up quite a lot in blues. In the key of A, this is the note C sharp. And the reason this note is there is because it comes from an A7 chord. But whenever you use that note particularly, it only fits over the A7 chord. And in a blues, you hopefully remember that it's got the chords A, D and E, or A7, D7 and E7. And any licks that use the note C sharp only sound good over the A chord. So the reason they're not covered here is because these things, like I said, they're called chord specific licks, and they're going to get covered in advanced blues lead guitar, which will be coming to you very soon. So don't stress about that. If you want a quick snippet of what I'm talking about, you might like to check out a series of videos on my website called Jazz Up Your Blues, which talks about this concept a bit and gives you an introduction to the use of arpeggios, which is a very cool thing to do. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this series of blues lead guitar lessons, be it on the DVD or whether you've watched it on YouTube or through the website. I really hope that it helps expand your blues playing and takes you to new and cool and hip places that you never thought you'd go to before. I've seen many of my private students really progress from being complete beginners in the lead guitar department to really doing some pretty good quality solos. It's all about the licks. Okay, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again for another lesson real soon. Bye bye.